Very good evening to all of you. I welcome you all to the ICANN initiative, the Hindu and Indian Express analysis. And also because we have been doing the prelims theme of the day since July 22nd or so, I feel that we have done sufficiently and we have covered almost all the important areas that one need to go prepared for prelims. So from today we'll be stopping the prelims theme of the day initiative, and because there are just 20 more days or 20 more so days are left for prelims, we will stop this, and soon we'll also be starting an initiative where we will be giving the compilations of each week of the prelims theme that has been asked. So from today we'll be stopping this, and so now we'll start with the topics of the day. So now we'll start with the first topic of the day, which is related to the digital divide. So anything that's related to technology and digital divide could be a part of your GS3 syllabus, but it can also be a part of GS2 syllabus, because any welfare measure taken up by the government will also depend to an extent on the digital divide, whether it is more or less. So this is an important data that you'll be using in your answers to support your answer. And today most of the things that we'll be discussing are mostly the data which can help you support your arguments in the answers. So recently there was this survey done by the National Statistical Organization. So this survey by NSO has shown that there is a stark digital divide in the country, whether it is based on the region or it is on the urban and rural India between that. So there is the digital divide that is existing in the country is really stark. So on the one hand, if you plot this spectrum, on the one hand is the urban Himachal Pradesh, where the 70% of the people, they have access to the internet. So in urban Himachal Pradesh, the internet penetration is higher than 70%, but on the other hand, in contrast to this is the rural Odisha. So in rural Odisha, the internet penetration is as low as 6%. Just 6% of the households in rural Odisha have access to internet facilities. So now because of the COVID and the pandemic, many of the students are also accessing their classrooms or their lessons through Zoom or other online platforms. So such stark digital contrast means that such contrast in access to the digital services means how much more the children or even the youth are going to suffer because of this stark digital divide that is existing in the country. So in fact, this data also says that in India, just 1 in 10 households have a computer. So this computer could be a desktop or a laptop or a tablet, but just 1 in 10 households in India have a computer. And overall, it says that there is a difference, or the digital divide is also stark between the rural India and urban India. In the case of urban India, 42% of the people in urban India have access to internet, but in rural India, just 15% have access to internet. So this again shows the digital divide that is existing between the rural and the urban India. So whenever you are talking about the issues related to implementation of various policies, you can use this data to support your answer, that when there is such a stark digital divide in the country, it is unlikely that the welfare measures, they reach to the people in the same way in these contrasting regions. So that is how you can explain and also support your answer with data. Now we'll go on to the next data, which is again by the National Statistical Organization report. So the report was titled as Health in India. So this data is upon the immunization coverage in India. So what this report says that nearly 40% of the children in India are not fully vaccinated. When I say fully vaccinated, it means that a child which is less than 1 year of age receives a dose of 8 vaccines. So that is when we say that the child is fully immunized or is fully vaccinated. So 8 vaccine doses are given to the child in the first year of life. That is when we say the child is fully immunized. So only 59.2, or you can say approximately 60% of the children are fully immunized, whereas 40% of the children are not fully immunized. What is also very surprising about this data is that the NSO report on the one hand says that 40% are not immunized totally, that is 60% of the children are totally immunized. But the government's health management information system, the health MIS system of the government, says that the immunization coverage in the country for the year 2017 and 18 was at 86.7 or approximately 87%. So this also shows how much accuracy of data plays an important role while implementing any government program. So when the data collection which is done as part of the implementation of the program needs to be very authentic and very precise, so that we know exactly how much successful the program is. So if the data has there is such huge difference in the data, then it shows that there has not been a proper implementation of this program, or that the government is fudging the data, which will again cause trust deficit between the government and the citizens, which is definitely not good for a democratic country like India. So this data on the vaccination coverage, you can use it in whenever you're talking about the vaccination, which is a part of the healthcare which comes under your GS syllabus too. So you may have a full-fledged question on the immunization coverage in India and the critical analysis of the Indradhanush program. So in such case, you can use this NSO data to show how much has been the coverage of immunization, or how many children are fully immunized in the country. Now we'll move on to the next topic. Now the second topic is the Himalayan ecosystem. So this topic you can either find it in your GS paper 1, which talks about the changing nature of flora and fauna, the climate change and all that, or you can also see it in GS paper 3 when you are talking about environmental protection and disaster management. So first of all, you must know that the Himalayan ecosystem is one which is very fragile ecosystem. So therefore, it is extremely important to maintain this ecosystem integrity. So whenever you are writing such keywords as ecosystem integrity or anything, so please make sure that you underline such important words. So these are the important keywords that you must make sure that you underline, so that the examiner first will have his eyes on these important keywords, and he gets a picture that you already have caught the demand of the question and you're on the right track. So what this article talks about is that there are several issues when you talk about the Himalayan ecosystem. So first thing is that the urbanization has also been not very sustainable in this region, because of which a lot of issues related to pollution etc. have occurred. Second is the agricultural practices have also become faulty. From the traditional crops that were being grown in these regions, now there has been a transition towards the growth of cash crops, which is not really sustainable in the region. So that is one thing. And third thing is the wildlife. The wildlife areas, the protection accorded to these areas is also shrinking, and this is also leading to attacks on the crops and livestock as well. The fourth is the issue with the availability of water in the region. In spite of there being ice caps, there are also very frequent water scarcities in the region. All the local daras and the naulas are drying up, and this is also not just because of the overexploitation of water as a resource, but also because of the erratic precipitation or rainfall. So due to all of these reasons, the Himalayan ecosystem has become even more fragile, and that is like welcoming a disaster in the region. So in order to prevent all these, we must take certain steps to preserve the ecological integrity of this Himalayan ecosystem. For that, what do we need to do? First thing that we need to do is to, whenever we are following agriculture, then we need to follow the practices of sustainable agriculture. So organic farming needs to be promoted in this region, and promoting organic farming means that you promote things like biopesticides and botanicals and composting rather than using the chemical fertilizers and pesticides. This is one thing. Second thing is that as I said while talking about the issues, that there has been a transition in this system, in this place, from the growth of local food items towards the growth of cash crops. So we must come back to this, and the local food systems need to be revived, and the local food crops need to be grown and not the cash crops. So this is one more thing that needs to be taken into consideration. The third thing is that whenever we talk of the Himalayan ecosystem, then definitely this place is environmentally very conducive for the growth of medicinal plants. So this potential of the region needs to be completely identified, and we need to capitalize on this. So we have to explore the potential of medicinal plants that can be grown in the Himalayan ecosystem, and that needs to be harnessed. So this is the next thing that we need to do, is about promoting the medicinal plants. Next is, as I said, that this region is also facing a lot of water scarcity. So region specific water security also needs to be emphasized upon, and water conservation needs to be emphasized. So next is the water conservation. And last but not the least is a synergetic partnership. So the government, whenever it implements any welfare schemes or anything, it needs to take the community in confidence, and it needs to do it in partnership with the community. This is more so important in the Himalayan ecosystem, because here the livelihoods are extremely interlinked with the environment itself. So we have all heard about the Chipko movement, when the deforestation in the area was met with opposition from the women in the region, because after all it is the women who are most closely linked with the environment, and any destruction of the environment will have a bearing more on the women, a negative impact more on the women compared to the men. So that is why the government needs to come in partnership with the community, particularly the women. In this case, women, because they also have the traditional knowledge that is there regarding how sustainable agriculture needs to be carried out, because they have been living in that region for several centuries, and they have been practicing sustainable agriculture, which has not affected the environment. So they know the traditional knowledge regarding preparation of seeds, regarding harvesting, and what is the medicinal value of the plants there. So all of this traditional knowledge, the women and the other people there are a repository of. So therefore, in policy making and the decision making processes, we need to take them into consideration and also make them as partners during the decision making process itself. So this whole topic was on the Himalayan ecosystem, what kind of changes this fragile ecosystem is seeing, and then what are the kind of solutions going forward we can adopt. Now we'll move on to the next topic. So next topic is on Indian economy. So this can come in your GS paper 3, which talks about the Indian economy and its various characteristics. So this is a small data that you can use in your answers to support your answers or your arguments in the answers. So recently the government's own data has shown that in the first quarter of 2020, India's GDP has declined by nearly 23.9% or approximately 24%. So now Goldman Sachs has said that India's GDP in the financial year 21 is going to be contracted by 14.8%. So this is said by Goldman Sachs. So this is a small data which you can show write in your exam to support that the pandemic has had an effect on the Indian economy, not just in the current fiscal, where in the first quarter itself we have already seen the GDP shrinking by 24%, but it will also have an impact on the next fiscal, in fiscal year 21 also, where Goldman Sachs has estimated that the India's GDP is going to be contracted by 14.8%. So this has been the impact of the pandemic on the India's economy. So this data you can use to support your answers. So now we'll move on to the next topic. So the next topic is a banking system. So this again is a small piece of data which you will be using in your answers, and this again is a data which will help you to argue the impact of pandemic on various sectors of the economy. So because pandemic has been so much in news this year, you may face a question on the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on various sectors of the economy, in which one of the important sector is a banking sector. So this data will tell you how much impact the pandemic has made on the India's banking sector. So this is with respect to the debt or the loans that the banking sector has given. So RBI, recognizing the fact that because of the pandemic the economic activities have almost collapsed and are only now reviving, So it would be difficult for the borrowers to pay back the loans to banks. So it had set up a committee which would recommend how these loans that have been given by the banks could be restructured so that these various players in the economy who have borrowed from the banks don't find it extremely difficult to pay back the loans, given the fact that the economic activity has contracted. So now this committee has come out with a report, and in this report it has said that nearly 72% of the loan that the banking sector had given to various borrowers has been impacted by the COVID pandemic. So all the total amount of loans that all the banks had together given, 72% of that loan or that debt has been impacted by the pandemic. So out of this, the report has also told that nearly 42% of the debt were already in stress even before the pandemic started. And because of the pandemic, 30% more of the debt has now become stressed because of the pandemic now. So this is the data which shows what has been the impact of pandemic on the banking system, that this committee has come out with a report stating that 72% of the total debt given by the Indian banking sector has been impacted by the pandemic, of which 42% was in stress even before the pandemic, and because of the pandemic 30% more debts have been now under the stress category because of the pandemic. So this data you will use it to support your question on the impact of pandemic on the Indian economy, particularly on the banking sector. So even when you are talking about the banking sector and what are all the issues that the banking sector is facing, one of the issue is definitely this pandemic, and thereby the reduced capability of the borrowers to pay back the loans to the banks, and thereby probable increase in the non-performing assets of the banks. So this you can also use, this data can be used whenever you are talking about the banking sector and the issues facing the Indian banking sector. Now we'll move on to the next topic. So this topic is on agriculture, and in that particularly land consolidation. So in your GS paper 1 you have a topic called as land reforms, and land consolidation is also considered to be a part of land reforms, overall land reforms. So you can face this topic when you are talking about when you have a question in your GS1 paper, or agriculture and its various issues, which is already a part of your GS3 paper. In that also you can use this data. So mostly, as I said in the beginning, today we'll be talking about various data itself. So this is also a data on the availability of land per cultivator in India. So what this article says is there has been a lot of fragmentation of land in India, and that is prevented from having profitable agriculture, because when the land gets fragmented, then economies of scale cannot happen, technological upgradation in these small bits of land cannot happen. The farmer cannot invest in tube wells and wells in each of these small scattered pieces of land. He or she cannot even rent it because there is no utility of these extremely small pieces of land. So that has been the issue, and this article gives an important data about the increasing pressure on the land and thereby its increasing fragmentation. In 1970-71, the average land holding size was about 2.28 hectares. But in 2015-16, the average land holding size has come down to 1.08 hectares. This shows how much land fragmentation has happened, and this has affected the profitability of Indian agriculture. So this data you can use even when you're talking about land reforms as part of your GS paper 1 or in your GS paper 3, whenever you are asked to talk about the problems that the Indian agricultural sector is facing. Then one of the foremost problems is the extreme fragmentation of the land. In that you can write this data to strengthen your argument. Now we'll move on to the next topic. So this topic is about foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment and the different models of investment, modes of investment is a part of your GS3 syllabus, where you have to know about FDI, FII, and all the various other models of investment, which also includes the models that are used for the construction of highways, etc., like BOT and etc., engineering procurement model also. All of these models you will have to know. So when we talk of FDI as an investment model, you must have some basic data to support your answer on what has been the trend in the FDI investment into India. So in this case, compared to the previous year, in this year, that is the year that is ended on March 31st, 2020, the foreign direct investment has rose by 10%. In the previous year, our FDI receipts were 38.7 billion, and in the year that is ended on March 31st, 2020, our FDI receipts has been 42.7 billion. So there has been a 10% increase in the FDI that is coming to India. But however, if you closely look at the breakup as to from which countries this FDI is coming from, one important observation is that there has been a jump in the FDI that has come from Cayman Islands. So Cayman Islands is a tax haven. So you can say that maybe some part of the FDI that has come from Cayman Islands is only round tripping, or it could be the black money that is coming as a FDI, because Cayman Islands is a tax haven. So this is one thing. This is an important observation that we need to modify the treaties that we have, just like we did with Singapore and Mauritius. We may have to modify our treaties on FDI with various countries, because we need to avoid round tripping in the case of FDI. So this FDI that has come from Cayman Islands has increased by 305%. The jump has been 305% for the FDI that's coming in from Cayman Islands. And the second important observation is from your prelims point of view. You may have a question like, put these countries in the ascending or descending order in the order of the FDI received from them. So in that case, you have to know the top 5, the top 4, 5, 10 countries from which we are receiving the FDI. So in this case, the highest FDI that we have received is from Singapore, and after that is from Mauritius, and then is from Netherlands, and Cayman Islands has been the 4th one because of this huge jump. So this is the order for this year. So if at all you get this question in prelims, you must be able to do this rightly: Singapore, Mauritius, Netherlands and Cayman Islands. So these were the important data for today, and mostly today, apart from the Himalayan ecosystem wala topic, rest of the others were just important data that you must know, and you must note it down for your supporting your answers. And as I keep saying that no answer is complete without data, figures and examples. So these data are extremely important and you must use them at multiple places. So take a note of this and keep revising them. These were the other articles that weren't important from the exam point of view. NAM and its relevance we have already discussed before, and there was nothing much. Again, shrinking China is the same old thing, so nothing important from the exam point of view there. Now today's question related to prelims on current affairs is AITIGA. So this was a news. You have to tell me what is this related to. So all the details about this you will have to find out and tell in the comment section. So that's it for today. Thank you.